this is Wei Ying, and welcome to 5 Years of Gaywatch. Hello. Hi. Greetings. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing alright. Feeling very surreal over here today. Welcome, everybody, to the big 5 Years of Gaywatch question and answer stream. You guys are already spamming me with rainbow hearts, and are you trying to knock me off my game right at the start? Because like I had to take notes as to what I wanted to talk about today because I wasn't gonna remember, and then now you guys are just being nice to me right out the gate. What are you trying to do? Fine, it's fine, I'm fine, this is fine, this is normal. This is normal, it's just another, it's fine. You guys are really, way too nice to me. Jesus. Is the music still on? It shouldn't be. Let me take that down. Whew. Okay. Okay. All right. Y'all, listen, it's already blowing my mind that, so like when I'm reading stuff, which is usually what live streams on this channel look like. When I'm reading stuff, I can somewhat average between about 70 to like maybe if it's like really huge, like 110 or 115 or something. And that's when I'm reading stuff. And now there's like almost 80 of you who are in here just to hang out with me. And let me just say, there's like a whole thing on YouTube with YouTube creators and about like people telling you all the time that at the very least, at the very beginning, when you start doing this, people will be tuning in for like the stuff you do more so than like you, and that it takes time for people to kind of give a shit about you more than the stuff you do. And that especially goes for stuff like reaction content, stuff that's based around, you know, any type of stories, any type of storytelling medium. People will tune in to hear about their favorite thing more so than you. And so the fact that let me check that. A little over 80 of you now are here to just talk with me and share 5 years in Gaywatch, which is something that we did together. It's been 2 minutes and you already have me emotional. So there's a great place to start. We're going to talk about what we're going to do today on this stream and what we're doing a little bit later. But for right now, hi, I love you. We did this together. The thing about starting a YouTube channel is that, you know, you throw a party and you hope people show up, and the fact that people have showed up to the tune of over 14,000 subscribers and over 1,300 patrons who give a shit enough about what I do, the type of silly fun that I have, but also the discussions that I want to have and the positive space that I want to have, without being toxically positive and just all of that stuff. Kind of bringing the fun back into fandom was so much of this. And you guys being here and making this an actual serious option for something that I could do is a little nuts. And you guys keep fucking spamming rainbow hearts. And that's gonna make it very hard to talk because my throat closes when I get emotional. So, I'm sure I'm going to look for all kinds of other opportunities throughout this stream to thank you guys specifically for things. But all the rainbow hearts is a really good reminder about how fucking nice you all are. You guys are always so nice. And when you set out to create a kind space full of nuance on the internet, you can kind of feel like that's a little silly, what with all of the cynicism and infighting and all of the bullshit that can try to infect fandom spaces. And you guys showing up and being so kind, always, not just to me, but to each other. I was just telling the reading stream the other day, just a couple of days ago on Tuesday, that I have yet to have to bring a mod in for the chats on live streams, because you guys lead with just decency and compassion towards each other and how you discuss things with each other. And that's weird. I tell you guys all the time, y'all are weird. You're very weird. You are the outlier Sadly, you are the exception, sadly, to so many fandom spaces these days. And today is all about what we have done together. I threw the party, you guys showed up. And you guys continue to maintain such a lovely space for everyone, for me and for you guys. So, done for babbling. What are we doing on this stream? We're taking some questions for this stream. I asked patrons a little while ago to submit any questions that they may have for this stream in particular. So the first half of the stream, we'll be taking those questions, and then for the second half of the stream, it's just going to be a free-for-all in the chat. It's going to be a chat. Not that you have to say anything. As per usual, we love lurkers here. I lurk on many different places, and we always love a lurker. So you don't need to feel compelled to have to try to ask a question or do anything like that. You can just sit there and, I don't know, have lunch or something, and we're just going to have a good time, all right? Later on, we are starting at 3 p.m. We are starting Captive Prince. We are reading Captive Prince. If you have heard about this but not read it yet, this is the perfect time, let me tell you, because you don't want to miss it. If you are interested, if you're one of the people who are interested in Urha, but it sounded a little bit extreme for you, let me show you kind of what I would call the gateway drug to things like Urha. This is not as extreme as Urha, but it still has a lot of things going on. It still comes with trigger warnings, which I would say to check, and a very handy little link to trigger warnings will be available when we actually start the reading stream. In the Captive Prince reading stream, they'll just be in the description, okay? But, like, this trilogy means so much to me. There is a reason why I chose this trilogy to start on the Gaywatch 5-year anniversary. Just saying. You gotta trust me. You gotta go with me on this. You don't want to miss Captive Prince. All right. Trying to be zen. We're trying to be calm. And, like, one of the chief reasons why I thought I would be a good candidate to even start a channel like this was that I've never known chill a day in my life, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try to be calm while caffeinated. All right. First question over from the Patreon is from Chick Rider, who says, I probably won't be able to make it, which is a lie because I'm almost certain I've seen your name in the chat already. Says, I probably won't be able to make it, but I'd love to know what movie or series surprised you when reacting. Something maybe you weren't sure about, but then fell in absolute love over it. And actually somebody replied, ARP replied, Our Flag Means Death. How I found Gaywatch in the first place. And such a great 180 from, I don't think I'll like this, to, okay, you got me. I don't know if Our Flag Means Death was your answer or what you assumed my answer would be, but you are correct in both respects. That is exactly the show that I would say that is the first one that comes to mind, because I really wasn't sure about Our Flag Means Death, because me and Taika Waititi, in terms of project that he's involved in, I love Taika, but the stuff that he does is kind of like hit or miss with me a lot of the times, so I kind of wasn't really sure, and then it really, really quickly sold me. There was a real fast turnaround that is very apparent in the reactions for Our Flag Means Death. I was so not sure that I kind of dragged my heels in terms of starting it, because I couldn't really read the vibe. I tend to be picky about comedy, and so it was a little bit of a plot twist to get into Our Flag Means Death and then be kind of so pleasantly surprised. Not all of the comedy on Our Flag Means Death works for me, but most of it does. And that's weird for any show, to be honest. But especially for something with Taika's involvement. And I know he was mainly just one of the co-leads on that show, but it just kind of applies to all of Taika's stuff. So deeply, deeply surprised. And if you have not watched Our Flag Means Death, you absolutely need to. If you're like, it doesn't seem like my kind of comedy, trust me, there's a lot more to the show than that. Way more. And if you're not into pirates, it's really a rom-com with pirate flavoring, if that helps as well. So, Valdinia, who is the lovely, lovely patron who commissioned Wheel of Time over on the Patreon, and I have started Wheel of Time thanks to her, says, if you have any favorite Wheel of Time characters / moments by the time this stream happens, I would love to hear what they are. Extremely obviously, if you've been around here for a second and you kind of know me at all, I said this in the comment that I left when I first posted the Wheel of Time stuff, that it's really obvious who my favorite's going to be, and that would be Matt. It's very predictable of me. I understand, but you cannot hand me, you know, a guy with shitty dysfunctional parents who has a bit of a gambling problem, but also deeply loves his younger siblings and wants to take care of them. Come on. I'm only myself, and that is catnip for myself. Let alone the stuff that has started to develop with him already that I can't talk about because spoilers. But it's Matt. It's Matt. Of course it's Matt. Like, do I love Rosamund Pike? Obviously. So obviously, do I love Moraine? Of course I do. However, Matt packed up my heart in a suitcase and ran off with it in about 30 seconds. It was kind of record time, you know? Like, how could it be anybody other than Matt? Whew. The disreputable dog, who I always compliment their handle on because that's just kind of iconic, disreputable dog, says, if you remember, what was your first ship? Cartoon, book, TV show, anime. What was the ship that launched 1,000 ships? I remember mine, the first romantic pairing I was ever truly invested in was Hero / Relena from Gundam Wing, which quickly changed to Hero / Duo after reading my very first fan fiction. Of course. Shout out to Madam Hydra. We love shouting out fanfic authors. My very first ship is actually... I've always really remembered, for whatever silly reason, my first 5 ships. But I do remember the very first ship that I ever really cared about was when I was 14 or 15. And I believe I've tracked this back to try to figure out what my very first ship was. And going all the way back, I believe I figured out that kind of by a hair, by maybe like a few months, the very first ship I ever had was actually Jarth and Sarah from Labyrinth. And let me tell you, that explains a lot about me. That tells you a lot about me. Yeah, actually the first 5 ships that I ever had, which were all straight because I didn't get into queer shipping until 2009, and Kirk Spock. So if you're talking about Kirk Spock in the original series, that is the first real queer ship that I really got into, and I kind of got into in a big way. If you are here from the Ship's Closet and the commentary, then you've been here a while. You've been here longer than 5 years, and that's impressive. So Kirk Spock was the first real queer ship, but Jarth and Sarah was the first time. They were the first ship I ever wrote fan fiction for. The first ship that I ever made a fan vid for, that I ever made an edit for, was the Phantom and Christine from Phantom of the Opera. You can see the overlap there, and my first 5 ships really tell on me in that way. But I will never forget Jarth and Sarah. Not in a million years. You can pry them from my cold dead hands. Everything Matt's in the chat said her first gay ship was Victor and Yuri from Yuri on Ice, which is indeed topical because we're in the middle of that on this channel. The Patreon already has all of them, but they're still airing, getting posted on the main channel. That is indeed topical. That's also, we love that for you. Can you imagine? I can't imagine Victor and Yuri being my first foray into queer shipping. That would be insane to me. That's just wild in a whole other way. Shalkur, whom I know, hello, hi, we know you, we love you, asks, have you ever watched Goblin? It's a fantasy romance K-drama with a very shippable polycule arrangement, although canon officially there's 2 hetero couples. Another fantasy, time travel and multiverse shenanigans K-drama that had a very shippable possible poly arrangement was T-Chem. That one I have not heard of. But Goblin I have seen a very long time ago, actually. Long enough ago to warrant potentially doing the rewatch thing that I do whenever I haven't seen anything in so long that I've forgotten everything about it, so it's basically a reaction. Goblin falls into that category. And as someone who loves Gong Yu a little too much, I really probably should rewatch that. And I also saw that before I even knew really who Lee Donhua was. That was before I loved him unabashedly. So seeing the two of them in the same show might actually kill me. So I do really, I need to be reacting to that. Yes. Benny, I know you. I'm curious, what are your top 3? Oh, okay. What are your top 3 worst cases of the bury your gaze trope? I feel like Castiel or Quentin are probably up there, but I thought I'd ask anyway. Castiel from Supernatural and Quentin from The Magicians. Well, indeed, I do have an entire podcast episode on the Patreon about Quelliot and the Magicians and Quentin and how deeply and profoundly that hurt me. So that would definitely be one of them. That is certainly one of the worst cases. Bury your gaze is a little bit tricky because there are certain there are just certain boxes that it has to check in order to really be bury your gaze. Like, obviously not every queer character who has ever died has been a case of bury your gaze. Quentin absolutely was. Castiel absolutely was. And like, you know a bury your gaze is like really particularly bad when someone like me who does not ship Destiel sees what happened to Cass and like and you see it and you go, oh, that's bad. When you're offended on behalf of a situation that you are not personally invested in, that's how you know it's bad. The same thing happened with Quentin, actually. When everything went down with the Magicians, you had plenty of people who did not go there, who were not in the Magicians, who were very, like, angry and hurt on our behalf. And that's kind of when you know that it's usually particularly pretty heinous. Yeah. I would say, God, in terms of bury your gaze, because there have been so many. But I think you really did. You really named, like, the two most forefront ones that would leap out in my mind. And obviously, I'm just forgetting everything all the time. But I think you pretty much nailed it. The one that hurt me the most personally was Quentin. And which is why if you ever get into The Magicians, you should watch through season 4, episode 10, and then stop. Trust me. Just trust me. You should watch it. You should give it a shot. Because Quelliot is very important to me. But don't watch beyond season 4, episode 10. Alright? Just take my word for it. I keep on having to scroll all the way down. Holly says, the first question I can think of is, have you ever considered giving Hell of a Boss and Hasbin Hotel a chance? It's totally fine if you just don't think you'd be interested, but the shows only get a bad rep because people on the internet like to be edgy and hate on popular things they consider cringe. Without giving any spoilers, both series are queer as hell, and while they're set in the same general universe, they have two totally different stories that each raise interesting questions and discussions. Apologies if you've already mentioned your opinion on them somewhere. I only rejoined the Patreon recently, so I'm sure I've missed a lot. There is kind of everything is always happening all the time over on the Patreon. That's very, very true. Also, thank you for explaining to me how Hell of a Boss and Hasbin Hotel are connected, because I always hear their names mentioned in the same breath, and they seem to have a lot of similarities, like visually, but I wasn't exactly sure what was going on, and I can't really delve in to figure it out because of potential spoilers. So thank you for explaining to me what that was. Hasbin Hotel has definitely, both of them actually, Hasbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss, have been very much on my radar for a very long time. And actually, I believe there were going to be, it is actually on my commission list. I have a short list of people who have voiced their interest in commissioning a series from me, and Hasbin Hotel is actually on that list. And I do not even put things on the list that I know I'm not going to be interested in. That's one of the things about, you know, the commission list. Why would I commission something that I know I'm not going to enjoy? That would be shitty. So Hasbin Hotel is definitely on my radar, and I do plan on getting to it. Because, I mean, it's right up my alley. I love animation that is, like, cartoonish, but made for an adult audience. I love shit like that. And the fact that it's queer as hell, sign me up. Like, of course. Yes, definitely. Elf asks, the next Prince is airing soon, so what BL series are you most looking forward to, and are you planning to react to any of them or enjoy them by yourself? The next Prince I planned on live blogging over on the Tumblr. And I know that, I think this year, in terms of BLs, specifically if we're talking about like Thai BL series or BL series of that type, I think for me personally, there's a good couple of few things that I would want to live blog, but I don't think very many that I would really consider reacting to, with the exception of Shine, which is the next Mile and Oppo series from Beyond Cloud. That, obviously, I am front and center and seated for. But I do plan on live blogging the next Prince, because it's way too up my alley to not, right? But I have particular interests and tastes when it comes to the Thai BL sphere, so I try to be a little bit careful about which ones that I actually react to. Kai asks, I'm curious to know what your first queer movie or show or book was. Oh, damn. I think that goes back to, well, that certainly goes back to high school. But even before I got into queer fandom, there was a book that I checked out of my school library, if you can believe it, because we're talking about the mid-2000s in Texas. But there was a book that I checked out that was, by today's standards, a very garden variety, like, queer YA coming out, realizing sexuality story that I really loved, that I cannot remember the title of. I just remember that one of the main characters' name was Willa. But that went a big way towards my own kind of understanding of my own sexuality, because I had figured out that I was bisexual, but by the time I was 15, but it took me a while to figure out really what that was. I realized it very quickly, but I needed time to actually hash out the details, so to speak, and that book went a long way in kind of understanding what the queer experience really more was. But there was a series, there was the American version of Queer as Folk, which was the first show that I watched after I was kind of getting into queer fandom. So I was a little bit older. I was more like 22. This was like 2009. And I had already gotten into Kirk and Spock. And so I watched Queer as Folk, and that was basically my big introduction to queer community, queer issues, queer representation that was canonical. And like, we're talking to the point where I wasn't used to seeing just queer sexuality really at all, and I was stunned by what they depicted in Queer as Folk. Like, my little early 20s, grew up in Texas, whole brain was like really shook that it was just apparent, and it was there. It was there, like, hetero stuff was just there, and that was huge for me. I would actually like someday figure out how to do a rewatch of Queer as Folk, because I haven't watched it in a good hot second. And even though I'm actually not a shipper of Justin and Brian, which is the main big ship from that series, it's still deeply necessary, if only to my like own personal history. And also, if you're talking about, you know, educating yourself on queer representation in film and TV series, Queer as Folk should be prominently towards the top of your list. And we all know how I love to feature stuff like that. Big Mama G! I have known Big Mama G for a very, very long time. Probably since the commentary, but it may have been since Ship's Closet, but I feel like it's the commentary. So, Big Mama G and I go back. I follow her on Tumblr to this day. Big Mama G and I go way back. I know her. I love her. She is incredible. She says, I so want you to do a manifesto on Starsky and Hutch. I swear they're the second oldest and gayest pairing ever to grace the small screen, and I'm interested in how you got into it and what your favorite moments are. I half-assed started a rewatch, and literally asking me to pick one is like asking me to pick a favorite Kirk Spock moment. There's too many. I am actually overdue for a Starsky and Hutch rewatch. And you are correct in that they are the second oldest and gayest pairing ever to grace the small screen. Kirk and Spock were in the 60s. Starsky and Hutch were the 70s. Solidly the 70s. I believe the show started in 1975. And ruled the 70s in terms of queer shipping for a reason. Kirk and Spock were really kicking the door open, and Starsky and Hutch really picked up the torch, so to speak. And I'm not sure how I would do a reaction to it, because it's a very long show, and there can be kind of long stretches, if memory serves, of not too much like fun gay stuff happening. So I would need like a queer viewer's guide to Starsky and Hutch to really highlight all of the gayest or most interesting episodes that really feature like their relationship and their dynamic. And then maybe I would watch that, or at least react to those episodes while I'm in the middle of rewatching everything else. But once again, if you are interested in the history of queer shipping and queer representation in film and TV, Starsky and Hutch should be right up there. To go Kirk and Spock, Starsky and Hutch. Absolutely 100%. I don't think I've ever actually seen the entire series of Starsky and Hutch for a very silly reason. They put a mustache on my favorite one at some point, several seasons in, and I can't forgive them. I can't look at David Soul with a mustache. I can't do it. That's so petty, and that's so silly. But I also kind of hear that the show isn't really the same as well, so I feel a little bit validated. But sometimes you just can't do something for very silly reasons. Dana, who we know and love. Dana says, one question. I know you've only seen a relatively few Chinese dramas compared to the vast amount out there, but what tropes you see are different from the Anglosphere that you like or even not like so much? What tropes? You see relatively few Chinese dramas. Yeah, compared to the vast amount out there. There are definitely some distinct tropes in C-dramas as far as like a whole kind of approach to storytelling that was really interesting to get into because it was so different from the West in some ways. Tropes off the top of my head, though. See, they're different from anything you like or even not like so much. I really like how C-dramas can really, if you give them enough time, which a lot of them have, they can really go into detail and really set up very intricate plotting to a rather fantastically amazing degree. And sometimes it might even be a little bit too much. But for the most part, they tend towards very, very detailed and in-depth storytelling and world building that you only get sometimes in the West, and even then it only goes so far. And because Western media leans more towards being readily digestible, kind of on the fly, whereas Chinese dramas, at least the ones that I have seen so far, a lot of them aren't afraid to have a pretty high learning curve, for better and worse. And that's, so getting into a more complicated C-drama, even though it has that kind of higher bar than you would find in the West, almost always turns out to be even more rewarding. Like, they ask you to invest a lot of brain power into it, but then they also reward you with payoff and really interesting in-depth character stuff, rather than just, we're going to throw all these details at you because we're so smart and we're just going to essentially compliment ourselves for being smart all the time. They do actually draw you in to that level for a reason, for multiple reasons, actually. I believe that's Lou. Lou? Yeah. It's one of those things where you can't tell if it's if it's an I or an L. Where I'm having to scroll back down. There we go. Color Rush, a charming short Korean series / movie with a unique plot, and the leads and side characters are either sweet-natured or sweet at heart. I have heard of Color Rush. I don't think I've actually looked into it, but it's been recommended to me enough times now that I would have to, and this is why I have a pen right here, because I know you people. We cannot go a single conversation without at least a handful of recommendations. So I have a notepad here to write that stuff down. Once Upon a Fae asks, I'm curious about what the first queer ship you got into from Asian media, like anime, K-dramas, C-dramas, that kind of stuff. The Untamed, really. I may have had one or two anime ships, but that doesn't entirely sound or feel right. It was most likely The Untamed. The Untamed was the first C-drama I ever watched. And my biggest heydays with Asian media was kind of before I really got into the queer shipping of everything, so that, and my brain reoriented to the entire queer shipper thing. So there's a little bit of a before and after. So the really first big one was The Untamed and Lan Zhen and Wei Ying, which is why Wei Ying is here with me today, actually. Saskia says, not a question, but a Heartstoppper movie has just been announced by Netflix. Yes! Instead of a season 4, they are getting a film to round everything off with, and to finish Heartstoppper. So Heartstoppper is ending with a movie. I'm screaming about it a little bit. I so want them to land the plane, as I like to say. But Alice Oseman is very excited about it. And she's the one who wrote Heartstoppper, just because there's a lot of people from a lot of different fandoms here. Holy shit, there's over 100 people here. Hi. Yes, Heartstoppper has gotten a movie, and I'm very excited about it. And kind of also, as per usual, I'm also very scared, because we all know that it's difficult to end things, especially these days, especially in recent years. Cathoran Oakenshield asks, and I know what that name is from, asks, not a question, but I just wanted to share. I discovered your channel back in 2020 after I watched The Old Guard and was hungry for more reactions to it. Yours was the first reaction from a fellow queer person I saw, and after so many videos that didn't even acknowledge Joe and Nikki, seeing you, correctly, hyping their relationship up was quite the breath of fresh air. So happy 5 years, emphasis, so happy 5 years to both The Old Guard and the channel, and hooray for finally getting the sequel in a couple of months. The Old Guard coming back, also in the 5th year of Gaywatch, especially when The Old Guard happened in the 1st year of Gaywatch. And actually, The Old Guard was one of my very, very first reactions, period. It actually came before The Untamed. So I think it was like I started doing Star Trek, the original series, and then The Old Guard happened. And that was the first little breakthrough for the channel. And then The Untamed happened, and that was the first, like, even bigger breakthrough for the channel. And so The Old Guard and I, we go back. And the fact that we're finally getting the sequel in a couple of months, I can't talk about it, okay? I really can't. That is too It's overwhelming, all right? Me and the old guard, we have a connection, all right? You can't stop our love. Lila Kane. She is the MVP over on the Patreon Discord. She truly is. She hosts watch parties for all kinds of episodes and pilots and movies and things. And she's just a delight. And I cannot thank Lila enough for just her existence over on the Patreon in general. She took this upon herself. She volunteered to be as active as she is over in the Discord. And that you know how much I love you, Lila. I do indeed love you so much, Lila. You asked which of these MIA Chinese bromances are you most excited about? And this is the help list. So there's Chasing the Light, Eternal Faith, Guardians of the Lands, Immortality, The Story of the Bat, and Winter is King. That's so funny because I don't think I've actually ever caught the titles for Chasing the Light and Guardian of the Lands. But I've heard of the other 4, and 3 in particular. So Eternal Faith is the Heaven Official's Blessing C-drama. Immortality is Urha. And Winter is King is a priest adaptation of Chapeau Lang. I remember the Chinese title, but Stars of Chaos. Which actually I have not read yet, but I have people got me the volumes of Stars of Chaos. So that is absolutely on the list of things to be reading, but I have not gotten there yet. Which one am I most excited about? I tell you, it's close, but it has to go to Eternal Faith and Heaven Official's Blessing. I need to see Hua Cheng and Xie Lian. I need. And also the fact that Immortality, the fact that Urha is so close up there as well, and I'm only halfway through the series, really says something. But between the two, I need Hua Cheng and Xie Lian. I need to see them. I need that to happen. The fact that it is committed to film somewhere, but I haven't seen it, is a crime. That is an actual crime to my soul. I need it, please. Although, did you hear that there are currently rumors going around? So, huge grain of salt, because who knows until it happens. But I hear in the rumor mill that Winter is King might actually be happening. That might be dropped in the next, month or so or something like that. We can kind of hear rumors like this somewhat often, so make sure that the grain of salt is quite huge. But I just came across that recently, and given all of the kind of breakthrough drops that we've had in recent months, I'm cautiously optimistic. Vol asks, Beyond Evil's Japanese remake is coming out later this year. Do you think you'll be interested in watching that? I have actually officially clocked it. I knew they were making a Japanese version, and then I saw who they cast as it, and I am on board. I may not react to it, but I will at the very least live blog it over on the Tumblr, because it's Beyond Evil. I actually really need to rewatch Beyond Evil. It was one of the best things that I have seen from South Korea, which is saying something, because South Korea is insane in their quality. It's just unfucking real. Chris asks, all this time, which queer series / movies jump out at you as being the most memorable and unforgettable, and why? For example, did something smack you with so much feels that it surprised you? Did something take a route or path you weren't expecting and it was just amazing? Did something use a trope in an interesting or different way and it just stuck with you? Anything queerly unique that just spoke to you and you loved it, and why? Damn. Which queer series or movies jump out at you as being the most memorable and unforgettable? I tell ya, I don't think I will ever forget. There are the usual suspects. There's The Devil Judge, there's The Untamed, there's just so many things. If you're talking about canonically queer, that's obviously a little bit of a different list, but just in general, jump at you at being at the most memorable and unforgettable, I don't think I'm ever going to forget Fangs of Fortune. I just recently finished it over on the Patreon, and it put everything into everything. It's a very maximalist show. They went for the most insane visuals, the most insane soundtrack, the most insane cast, and the most insane storytelling. It's very, very flashy, fast-paced storytelling, especially in the second half. But the message and the overall, like, point of the show, which didn't land for me until, like, the very end, not that I was having a bad time before then, but everything that it does and kind of why, and it just, I don't think I'm going to forget it. Technically, have I seen better executed stories? Yes, but the emotional truths of Fangs of Fortune, and also the rather immaculate shipping opportunities and very clear polycule vibes, I just don't think I'm really ever going to forget that. That has really leapt out at me, and that's going to be a show that I reference in certain scenarios, like, all the time now. Yeah. Chris also asked, give a trope that you absolutely love and give us 3 series or movies that did that trope well. This is impossible to answer right now, Chris. But I have some very, I feel like all the big tropes that leap into my mind are all kind of very predictable and broad tropes. Like, I love a good hate to love. I love a good, anything based on hurt comfort. I do love tropes. Here's a more specific trope is, I love it when one character thinks that the other character is dead. And then, because then you have the inevitable churning angst and then the realization that they are in fact alive and you get like a reunion moment. I love a reunion moment, which is why I can actually root for conflict sometimes, because I know it's going to come back around, and that's what you love to see. Would I be able to think of shows off the top of my head? No, because I'm blanking right now. But those are some tropes that I'm deeply, deeply very much into. It's a very quick way to my heart. Also, like, Grumpy Sunshine? Come on. Yeah. Big, rough, tough person. Soft, gentle, lovely person. Yeah. Come on. Oh, and then Chris also asked, let's talk about epic character entrances. What is it that makes a good character entrance, and give some examples? Like, clearly, Li Shangyi and Di Fei Sheng had a memorable ship fight scene in episode 1 of Mysterious Lotus Casebook. What is it that makes it epic, and what is it that hooks us into wanting more, and to learn more about the characters in question? Are there any stories that did it well or badly? Any advice to writers regarding character entrances? Ooh, dude. Okay, so I do love me a good character entrance. And I mean, I really do, because it's that promise. It's that this character has showed up. Here is his first impression, and how that is framed, both literally if we're talking about a series, but then also from a prose perspective, can tell you so much about a character, but it's still just a first impression. But it has to be distinct enough and with enough intention behind it for you to go, that guy. I know who that guy is. One of the more obvious one, the very first Indiana Jones movie was immaculate in its character introduction, because you did not see Indiana Jones' face for like the first few, I think, couple of minutes. You get all this walking through the jungle, and it's just behind him with that now iconic silhouette with the hat and everything. And they really choose the moment to finally reveal, because he's supposed to be this adventurer, and there's a lot of iconography built into all of the Indiana Jones, but especially the first one. They were really setting up an icon here, this adventure, sexy hero, and then they went in and built in with all of the lovely nuance. Like, he's an absolute fucking nerd who thinks that relics, should be preserved rather than just exploited and sold on the black market. But they waited to get into all the nerdy stuff. They sold you with you know, here's Harrison Ford in an open shirt with a whip and a hat kind of thing. When it comes to try to setting up like your own characters, it is looking for that moment that you know comes in the first scene. And it's looking for the opportunity to have the character do something that tells you who they are, but is memorable enough that you get kind of that zing of fun. That's what's so great about like really big epic character entrances. You're like, this is going to be fun. Not necessarily always positive fun, because characters don't always need to be likable, but you get that little zing of, here's a new person with a new vibe, a new thing about them, this new little mystery to solve, this new person to delve deeper into and explore. But here is the fun or tragic or relatable or, you know, reason to root for them or reason to feel for them, something that gets you that little promise of a new person. Let's see. Oh, Lord, I need to go quickly. So, since there are... Oh, okay, we've only got, like, a couple few left. A couple of them are a little bit long, so I will do my best to summarize. Lisa Cho asks, do you think the LGBTQ plus representation in cinema and literature changed a lot in these past few years, or not at all? What media developments did you like, and which ones did you not? Aha! So we are in the middle of a boom, I would say, of canonical queer representation, which is, in and of itself, fan-freaking-tastic. And I have definitely noticed the uptick in canonical representation has been a little wild. And the fact that we're starting to get genre queerness rather than being trapped in kind of contemporary drama or contemporary rom-com territory. The fact that not every canonical queer story you see is centered around coming out now, or centered even around like the queerness. Queer characters more and more are being allowed to just exist in a narrative without that being the one thing that defines the character. That is fantastic. I am kind of noticing, or I guess kind of I'm wary of this idea that because there's now much more canonical queer representation, and in that sense queer media is kind of booming, I don't want to see queer media and mainstream media being separated into two different things. And it's not something that I'm so worried about that I've really talked about it yet. It's just something that I'm wary of kind of low-key. Because the last thing that we need people to do is to be like, well, the gays already have so much media. Why would we need to bring queerness into mainstream stories when you can just go off and do your own thing? That kind of big separation, I would not like to develop. We need queer identities depicted in mainstream media for some very obvious reasons. But we still need that as much as we need and deserve all of the varied storytelling with canonical queerness in our own thing. That doesn't mean that it should be kind of erased from the mainstream. That would actually do more harm than good, no matter how successful queer media gets. And I can, again, it's not so much that I've ever talked about this before, but it's in the back of my mind that if the straights really wanted to, they could. And to my best ability, I won't let them. So, Inioff asks, what stories do you think manage to carry their core themes to a satisfying conclusion? I recall you mentioning in one of your reactions that Arcane didn't manage to do that, and I agree with you. It's a heartbreak that won't go away. Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind is the Hunger Games trilogy. That one really, really delivers, in my opinion. It's kind of hard to come by, but I will cite a couple of shows that technically went on past their expiration date, so to speak, their end point, but there was still a very clear end point, and that would be House. The first 4 seasons of House had the original writers, and I believe from seasons 4 to 5 is when all the original writers either left or were fired or something like that. But they knew that this was their last go-around. And so seasons 1 through 4 of House is the core story. And that in and of itself ends beautifully. It ends perfectly. It brings about House's character in the way that needed to be brought about, in such a way that it makes continuing the story rather silly, because we've already dealt with the main issue of the entire series. We know that now. Ditto Supernatural. The first 5 seasons were the original creator's intention, and that it's what he wanted out of the story. That was the story he wanted to tell, which is why he left after season 5. And then it ran for an extra 10 seasons. But even I watched through like the very beginnings of season 7 or something like that, because just because with the way that season 5 would have ended, that would have hurt my soul too much. Oh, that was unintentionally funny. But season 6 kind of rounds things off in a way that, as much as I respect the ending that originally went into the end of season 5, I need season 6 in order to sleep at night. So, but the original 5 seasons really landed and did the damn thing, even though it continued. Oh, Helmy asked this, said, this isn't really a question, but more of an idea of a potential thing you could do on the channel. And then she goes on to outline about reading fan fiction, I believe, is what about reading fan fiction on stream. That is like a separate can of worms. That's like a whole thing that would need to be addressed, just because for several reasons that I actually, we really don't even have time to get into at the moment. But I have been thinking about that, and in trying to find a way to kind of incorporate some fanfic love to the channel, there's some hoops that need to be jumped through first. But that has occurred to me, and that is something that I'm trying to figure out how to address in a way that will actually work from a practical perspective. But that is on my to-do list. Maddie said, I have 2 questions. Not sure if they've already been asked, but what's your favorite thing that you've reacted to on the channel? And now that you've read MXTX, Priest, and Meat Bun, how do you think they compare to each other? Do you prefer one style over the others and stuff like that? First question, what's your favorite thing that you've reacted to on the channel? Why would you make me choose among my own children? Why are you Sophie's choicing me right now? What's my favorite thing that I've reacted to on the channel? I think I already have a video or potentially a live stream on here of ranking everything that I reacted to in 2024, 2023 or something, and I already had a conniption. But my favorite thing that I reacted to, see, the very obvious answer has to be the Untamed, though. Because the Untamed impacted me almost as much as Kirk and Spock impacted me, and the only thing that sets Kirk and Spock apart is that Kirk and Spock is literally how I met my wife. So you can't get any bigger than that. But the Untamed, that's such a predictable answer from me. But it kind of has to be the Untamed, but at the same time this is deeply unfair, because the Devil Judge is right there, and just so many other things. The Old Guard is right there. Yuri on Ice is right there. Interview with the Vampire is right there. There are Hannibal, for God's sakes. Our Flag Means Death. There are so many things. Heartstopper. Moonlight Chicken, for all of its, awful title. There are just too many things. Kitten Porsche, for fuck's sake. There's just so many. There are simply so many. How dare you ask this question of me, who has never made a decision in her life? In comparing and contrasting MXTX Priest and Meat Bun, I have only read Guardian by Priest, but I have read everything by MXTX, and I am halfway through Urha, which is by Meat Bun. I mean, apples and oranges a little bit, because they're all three of them are fantastic. I think MXTX is the GOAT for me, still, personally. Meat Bun, however, is doing a lot. She's doing so much, and she's really getting up there for me. I loved Guardian, and I loved Priest's writing, but I do hear rather consistently that Guardian is not kind of the fan favorite when it comes to Priest, that I have yet to really read that. So I do need to read more Priest, because if I had to kind of compare them all, Priest would have to come in third at the moment, which is wild because, again, you're talking about three writers who I love dearly. Priest is really, really good at her concepts. I have heard, you know, more than one Priest concept between Word of Honor and Guardian and Stars of Chaos and everything. She's really good at coming up with a setup. Her setups are bangers. Meat Bun is exceptionally good at her description. I think I've called out her prose when it comes to description more so than anybody else. And then MXTX is such that she's the all-rounder for me. She kind of, there's not a single thing that I don't think she has a weak point, to be honest. I really don't. And the fact that she started so young and has done that so young, we can't talk about her. We simply can't. But I'm very excited to read more Priest. Red Stocking Death. Over a week and I still can't come up with anything to ask at all. I give up. The hyperfixation is simply too strong at the moment. I'm literally all head empty, only Justice in the Dark taste. So instead, I'll just say, happy 5th anniversary. Thank you so much. That's a very sweet comment coming from somebody called Red Stocking Death. I appreciate the juxtaposition. And then the last question from the Patreon is from Nini, and it is, what is the prettiest, as in visually satisfying / impressive Asian TV series you've watched, and why that or those ones? Obviously, requisite shout out to The Untamed, but also Fangs of Fortune really fucking did something. They aimed for peak devastation in every single aspect, down to the costumes, down to the cinematography, down to the way that the series is just colored in general. The color correction and stuff. Stop. It is absolutely ridiculous. However, shout out to the Devil Judge's cinematography, because that shit was unreal. I can't talk about the Devil Judge. I don't have time. However, the cinematography for the Devil Judge, which already has a fantastic aesthetic about it as well, but then they had to just get really offensive with their intention behind the cinematography. There's a reason that Janae and I have talked about the Devil Judge for literally several hours. And you can see most of that at the moment between her channel and mine. Alrighty, there was one other question that actually landed in my inbox on the Tumblr, but was weirdly appropriate for the timing. And so this is from Champion Ari, and she says, "Hi Brittany, I hope you're having a good day. I am most likely not going to be able to make the 5th anniversary, and I felt this question would be better served here. But I'm bringing it over. You see what I did there? Would you be interested in making video essays about specific ships? Like make full-scale videos talking about your opinion on specific ships, your favorite moments, headcanons, etc. For example, I am not a Patreon member, so if this has already been discussed, I apologize. Seeing you become a fully fledged JVIC shipper from Arcane after their final scene makes me want to hear more of your thought process about the topic. Also, more long-form content from you outside of live streams would be fantastic." Huh. Would long-form things be... Would long-form? I don't know, you guys tell me. Would long-form... And to me, long-form means, like, on YouTube, means over half an hour minimum. To me, for me and my viewing preferences, it really says over an hour. That's when a video gets long to me. But in general for YouTube, it's really like over half an hour. It's probably more like 20 minutes, but that's too depressing. So really, yeah, anything longer form, I don't really know what I would do for that long. I would have to think on it, but if you guys are all, you know, I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Okay, so we're writing down long form outside of live streams. Or potentially just outside of reading streams. Huh, yeah. And then they actually asked something that was, it's very relevant because I have actually figured out a video essay type, I suppose, series kind of thing that does specifically delve into specific ships. That really digs into both the individual characters and then like their overall dynamic. And not just how it was constructed from an artistic standpoint, but what's happening in that dynamic and kind of defining what's in that dynamic. And it comes at it from a way that I personally haven't really seen done on YouTube before. And I'm working on the first video of that. I've had to do a rewatch. I've had to make notes. I've had to do all that stuff. But I'm deeply excited about it. And so it was really funny that there's this tendency on Tumblr these days to ask me about something literally right before I do the thing. And so I haven't been able to surprise Tumblr at all in the past like 2 months because they keep guessing before it happens. And this is a perfect example. Because, well, yes, I do indeed. I have figured out a way that I specifically can come at taking apart ships in a way that's really, really fun for me, but also unique enough to kind of be worth people's time. And let's see, there's 125 fucking people in here, and that's more than I get for a lot of reading streams. So I will go ahead and tell you that I will not give you details on exactly how, like what the series is in terms of like what it entails, because it does combine some things, but I will tell you what the first video is going to be about, the first ship, because there's a lot of people here, and it's been 5 years, and that's absolutely fucking insane. And I'm only saying this because I know for a fact that this is going to be the first ship that I talk about in this way. Because I've already started on it. I'm actively doing it. So, the first ship that we're going to talk about is Ed and Steed from Our Flag Means Death. I chose them first because they have a very, very interesting dynamic going on that is very well constructed and very well delivered, and it can be broken down in a way that is a bit easier to come at while possessing enough depth to make it really warrant the way that I'm gonna do it. And they deserve to be explored in this way. And it just seemed like a really good way to kick off this whole idea thing. Easy enough to not be so intimidating, because there are obviously other ships that I want to get to that are kind of like a rat's nest of things. Obviously, one day I want to, talk about Louis and Lestat from Interview with the Vampire. Obviously, I want to do, Hannibal and Kim Porsche, and then obviously anything from a Dan May that I've read, and just all these things that are all these big, unwieldy things. But the great thing about Our Flag Means Death is that it's very contained, and it's very direct, and it's very clear, but it also has a lot of really interesting stuff going on with a lot of themes that I personally get a lot out of and that I deeply relate to. So, Our Flag Means Death. That is the first one that we're doing. We're doing Ed and Steed, as we should, I feel. I love them. I love them very deeply. So now, for this last bit of the stream, because I talk too much, apologies, free for all, man. Who has a question? Was there something that I've been talking about as I've been blathering for a while that I didn't go into that you would like for me to go into? Rank your faves among priest adaptations you have watched or are watching. I think I've read and seen Guardian, and then I've seen Word of Honor. And then that might be it, actually. Well, no, that's not true, because Justice in the Dark exists. Okay, so Justice in the Dark is first. Because Word of Honor and Guardian are a lot harder to rank. Because, oh man, like, you know what? I'm going to invoke the bisexual prerogative and say that they both come in second. I really can't choose. Because they're both overwhelming to me. Justice in the Dark does come out on top, and it's not even fucking done yet. But Justice in the Dark appeals to a lot of very specific things for me personally. So, I mean, of course. But I can't rank Word of Honor against Guardian. And you can't make me. So, the funniest moment for me on the channel? Oh God. I know there will be, wait, who came from that? Everything Mads, thank you. Oh geez. I have a particular fondness for whenever, I happen to throw out like a prediction or a theory, or even sometimes I'm just joking and then that exact thing happens. That tickles me personally. That always gets me. That's never not funny to me. But there have been too many moments of absolute just joy and hilarity that I couldn't possibly name. But that little thing that tends to happen to me a lot, kind of, that's always funny to me. Lost asks, how did Star Trek help you meet your wife? There's an old video of the wife and I talking about how we met and how our whole relationship came to be. But, so I wrote a lot of words of very silly, yet hopefully very thorough, meta-analysis of Star Trek the original series by way of Kirk and Spock. And that was my first kind of, I guess, major contribution to fandom. And as I was posting that, like, a lot of people seem to really like it, which kind of blows my mind because it's deeply ridiculous, but also deeply nitty-gritty in terms of analysis. And she, the wife, really liked it and was a reader of it and contacted me one day to ask if she could put a couple of quotes onto some icons for LiveJournal. This is how long ago this was. And I said yes. And then that's how we started talking, and we started emailing back and forth. And then one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden I'm moving over 1,000 miles across the country in order to be in the same city as her. And then a few years after that, we're married. And now we actually celebrate our 5th year wedding anniversary this year. We were married at the ass end of 2020, and we celebrate 5 years as well this year. So without Kirk and Spock, I don't know her, which is that's yeah. I'm not here without Kirk and Spock at all. I just saw one go by. I just saw a question go by. Rumi asks, also, as a writer, how do you manage your time and creativity while regularly making videos? Thanks. I currently don't. Unfortunately. But then again, this is an oddly busy time for Gaywatch at the moment. And I also happen to be zeroing in on the end of a 3-year-long D&D campaign that I am the dungeon master for. So all of my creative real estate is really, and time is currently taken up by Gaywatch and D&D. But I do know what I'm writing next, because I believe that I need another 1 or 2 projects done and completed before I write what will actually be my debut novel. And, of course, everything that I practice writing in then, the debut, will, of course, be queer and romantic because, hello, that's me. But you can read the first installment of the thing that I'm writing next. It's on AO3, on Archive of Our Own. My author handle there is the same as my personal Tumblr, so it's Suicidally Reckless. And City of Change is the most recent thing on there, and it's been a few years. But you can read City of Change. It is technically RPF, but it is very much just plugging into overall aesthetics and personalities into an entirely different AU. So it's very, very AU. But currently, I don't. I have not had time or brain space for writing these days. But when I do, it's just a matter of working it into my already daily schedule, because if I leave it to later on in the evening or when the wife is home and we're hanging out and stuff, I don't have enough discipline or executive function in order to do that. So it is about finding time in my actual work day when I'm already trying to be as productive and creative and kind of peak brain as possible. Even if you're just writing in the cracks of time that you have, that's still the best way to do it, in my opinion. Find wherever your brain is at peak, and then you just kind of have to take each day as it comes, at least for me and my absolutely chaotic ass schedule. Liv asked, is there a recent character you identified with, like Punch You in the Heart identified with? For me, you all know who, he's in my PFP. Buck from 911. There is a long and extensive live blog over on the Tumblr of me getting into 911, and then I started actually reacting to it on the Patreon starting at just a few episodes ago. I think season 8 episode 15 or 16 or something like that, because I enjoyed it so much. But Buck very specifically, and his backstory and everything that goes into him, I haven't been seen by a character like that in a very long time. There are a lot of characters that I can kind of take piecemeal of, oh yeah, I identify with that feeling or that moment, but Buck very quickly, once his full backstory was revealed and everything, very quickly became a part of me. There's a short list of characters who I identify with so much, whom I identify with so much that I can't, it's like describing like a piece of me. And Buck added to that short list. I love him unbelievably, just unbelievably. And I feel extremely seen by him in a very specific way that has to do with childhood trauma, which is kind of funny because his backstory and my backstory are very, very different, but come with but the core experience is very similar. And I don't see childhoods like mine with that core experience explored very often in fiction. And that really hits home for me. And I could not possibly talk about Buck more. So, like, yeah, it's Buck from 911. Yeah. And if you know, you know. Oh, man. Oh, geez, there's more. I'm going to squeeze in as many as I possibly can before we hop over to Captive Prince. Oh, Epic Walrus. By the way, I know and love you. Epic, you know I love you. We've chatted before. If you had complete creative control, is there a queer story you'd love to adapt? Your own or one that you'd love to see on screen? I grew up with TV and film first and foremost. So, kind of obviously anything that I would personally write, I would love to see play out on the screen in some way and would love to adapt it. But I kid you not, I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to just draw a connection to the thing that I'm about to do or anything, but it's legitimately, it's Captive Prince. If there was one thing that people were like, hey, we'll give you a story to adapt into a miniseries, a film, trilogy, or whatever you want to make of it. You get one thing. It would be Captive Prince. I'm serious. I would do that. Even though I haven't read it in a few years, which warrants starting reading it today. I have, like, scene by scene analyzed that mother. I have my debut eventually, presuming that I know what it's going to be, but I think I do, will have been heavily informed, not obviously based on or anything like that, but just heavily informed by things that Captive Prince did. Like, I cannot overstate to you how important Captive Prince is to me. So, like, give it to me. Let me do it. I'll do it. Ooh, I would adapt the shit out of that. Whew. Oh, Everything Mads asked, if you could choose any ship in media to be canon, not Spurk, because that feels like the obvious one, in a show or movie, which one would it be? Oh, shit. Because there are plenty of ships where, like, you ship it really hard, but you know that if it went canon, it wouldn't either make sense or really serve the story. It's not a ship that's meant to go canon, right? It's just something that you love, and you love the AU potential of it, but not something you would actually want to see in a show. And I have actually quite a few of those. But I also have plenty of ships where I'm like, this would make a better story. Why would you not do that? Oh, God. And, of course, Kirk Spock notwithstanding, because that is indeed obvious. They're sitting on a fucking gold mine. But anyway, actually, I will say The Witcher. Geralt and Jaskier. That makes a better story, man. I don't make the rules. I also really don't like the dynamic of the actual canonical person that he ends up with. But that's neither here nor there. That's a whole other rant. But Geralt and Jaskier should be canon, in my opinion. It should be made canon. Why would you not make that canon? Thank you. We are really coming up on... Okay, let's see. I'll try to take one more. Misha... If you could forget one TV show and watch it again, which would it be? That's my superpower. All I have to do is not watch it for a few years, and I completely forget it, and I get to watch it all over again. I've done that many times on this channel and on Patreon. That's a common refrain. Oh, I saw this, but forever ago, so I really don't remember any of it. Do it all the time. But for something to completely forget... Oh, no, sorry. Going back to the other one. The Witcher, obviously, Geralt and Jaskier. Duh, of course. The number one answer, however, that is not Kirk and Spock, is Merlin. Merlin and Arthur. How could I possibly not say that? That is so obvious it's staring me in the face. That was the story. That was it. That would bring it all in together, baby. That's the complete story. That is it. You know what kind of bullshit would come from having to do that? And realizing all of that? Do you know? Don't get me started. It's Merlin and Arthur. Number one spot. Geralt and Jaskier, perfectly valid. Still also my secondary answer. Merlin and Arthur. Fucking hello. Liv sent a super chat. Thank you, Liv. And Liv said, thank you so much for creating such a safe and loving community for all the queer little folk to feel comfortable. Here's to 5 more years of loveliness. I got a bonus, and so you do too. Hilarious. Thank you so much, Liv. You are such a sweetheart. Oh Lord, there was one up here. I thought I saw maybe. Oh, and there's been a super chat from Lane Jade as well for a happy 5 years. Thank you so much. Oh man, this is a bit insane, y'all. This is a bit crazy. Okay, last question, and then I'm hopping over to the Captive Prince. From Schaukuer, Schmetterling. We know you, we love you. Have you seen Top Gun Maverick, and do you ship Hangster? So, the thing about Maverick, if the ship is the ship that I think you're talking about, and this, I can't believe I have to mention this twice in one stream, but one of them has a mustache and I can't, there's literally only one time that I am capable of doing a mustache in terms of shipping, and it's literally Jude Law's Watson in Holmes and Watson from the Guy Ritchie, Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock. That's it. That's the only valid mustache for me, period. It just is. I have been meaning to kind of watch the Top Gun sequel, though, because I grew up with Top Gun, and I actually went through a significant period of my adolescence in a big Tom Cruise way. So I have been meaning to watch it. Will I ship it, though? It's gonna have to take something for me to get over the mustache. If it's the ship I'm thinking of, because I have seen it come across Tumblr. And then to end things with a super chat from Misha. Happy 5th anniversary. I'm so happy to be part of such a great community, and your reactions genuinely are the highlight of my weeks. Thank you, Misha. I know you too, Misha. You're over on the Patreon, and you have been for a while. And then from Ninin, excuse me? And then from Ninin, happy 5 years. Y'all just keep... All right. Okay. All right. Y'all, this was way too much fun to just literally talk at you for... How long have we been going now? I can't even tell. It won't even tell me. Oh yeah, we've been going for over an hour and a half. This is what I always do. I'm always like, it'll just be maybe like a short little thing. I don't know. But like, I swear to God, every time I go live, we wind up talking for way longer than I intend. And it is now 3:02, and I should be reading Captive Prince. So hop on over to that stream. I will be there in just a few minutes. I'm going to grab some tea, and then we are going to sit down, and we are going to start Captive Prince. You don't want to miss it. I'm telling you, you don't. I cannot believe. Be happy with another super chat. I can't, and more rainbow hearts. All right. So, like, okay. I have to go. You guys are too lovely, and you're too generous. And I can't believe I threw a party and you guys showed up. All right? So, I'm gonna go read Captive Prince. Thank you, little Liz, for yet another super chat. And, I really want you guys to take care of yourselves. There's a reason why I say that at the end of every single frickin' thing that I do. I really want you to take care of yourselves. That's a very serious thing for me. It has been a lifelong process to learn how to take care of myself, and it's something that I'm still learning. So please take care of yourselves. And if you don't know how, you can always learn. Okay? I am a testament to that. So I will see you over on the Captive Prince stream, if you are available. And I'll see you very soon for more very, very gay things, including our flag means death, and writing, and stuff, and so many things. Thank you so much for being here. I can't believe this many of you showed up. Happy 5 years of Gaywatch.